So where do the Georgia Bulldogs go now at receiver that Jermaine Burton has decided to transfer to Alabama? It's not as bad as you would think for the Dogs, but you are losing one of the premier playmakers in the SEC at receiver in Jermaine. And the Dogs are going to return now three of their top four receivers. They're not all receivers. Brock Bowers is a tight end. Ladd McConkey, obviously a receiver, and A.D. Mitchell is a receiver who's made plenty of big plays. They had the most in terms of numbers of catches. So those three guys. In terms of yardage, you go Brock Bowers, Jermaine, who's left, Ladd McConkey, then A.D. Mitchell. James Cook left, and then you got Kenny McIntosh, Kyrus Jackson, Darnell Washington. So a lot of what was there a season ago returns. You lose Burton. Are you going to pick somebody else up along the way? This also assumes that Darnell sticks around. There's been some scuttlebutt about him leaving. Listen, while I got your attention, make certain that you're getting DAWGSTRUCTION. 82 pages of full color recapping all of the games of the 2021 national championship season at Georgia. Make sure you pick it up right now. I think the biggest guy, you can click down below, right below, and get that. I think the biggest guy that returns is Brock Bowers. I mean, 56 receptions, 882 yards, almost 16 yards per, 13 touchdowns. Brock Bowers, you can make the argument, is the best receiver, no matter the position, in the SEC returning. Um, you can make that argument. He's a damn good football player. Obviously, you lose Burton. Ladd McConkey has been very productive, even though he's not been thrown to tons of times. I mean, he's got 31 catches for 447 yards this past year, not quite 15 yards a catch, five touchdowns, a 60-yard is his long. A.D. Mitchell with the game-changing play against Alabama, really the reason why Georgia won. There were several reasons, but that pass to A.D. Mitchell was a big deal for sure. So A.D. Mitchell's 29 receptions, 426 yards. So a little bit more average on average than Ladd, and four huge touchdowns. That one in the national championship game was a big deal. Kenny McIntosh, 22 receptions, 242 yards. And then there's some guys who did not, I mean, they were banged up during the season, and I'm going to go through them right now. Kyrus, he played all 15 games, but he was not himself for the bulk of the season. Arian Smith obviously got hurt after the Mizzou game, I think it was, scoring a touchdown there. Getting him back, he would be a very difficult person to deal with in 2022 for folks dealing with the Dogs. And then Marcus Rosemary St. Jack, or excuse me, Jack Saint, he had 13. He played 13 games, only 7 receptions. That's another guy that him and Arian Smith have got to get healthy and stay healthy. If that's where you're at, you can do some real damage with this receiving core. I mean, honestly, if you return McConkey, A.D. Mitchell, and Kyrus Jackson, I've not even mentioned another guy who's got to get healthy completely, which is Don Blaylock. Leaving out Eric Gilbert for now, but Georgia's not hurting in terms of pass catchers. That's not a huge problem for the Dogs. The problem is you lost a guy who has proven he can be explosive in Jermaine Burton. And you're going to probably play Alabama, and dealing with Jermaine Burton is just another problem that you're going to have to deal with. And I expect Jermaine to get 60 to 100 catches at Alabama. I mean, he will be a premier pass catcher for them, but it's not like Georgia's just going to go away because they lost a guy. This is the same. I mean, George Pickens was hurt until the Georgia Tech game this season, and Georgia was undefeated the entire way. Well, they didn't play anybody. I don't know what that means. They beat everybody they played, so it's hard. It's hard to be much better than that. Stetson throws it about. He played in 14 games, 287 divided by 14. The only game he didn't play in was the Clemson game. He throws it about 21 times a game. Now let's keep in mind, he probably has a handful of games where it mattered where he threw what he threw in the second half. Probably the Auburn game, both Alabama games, maybe Tennessee. That's it. I mean, 20.1, so 21 passes a game. I think that's going to be more than JT, and it is. So JT averaged about 16 a season ago in the games that he played. But if we could all be Kenny McIntosh and go have a 581 rating at quarterback with his one throw for one touchdown, 18 yards. Not bad, Kenny. Not bad at all. But Stetson averaged about 205 yards a game throwing it. The run game, Georgia typically was about 251, so JT was going to throw it for more. But when you're throwing for, when you're running for 191 yards a game, and you're adding 200 passing, I mean, that's about as balanced as you need to be. That is a threat on both sides of the ball, throwing it and passing it. I mean, Georgia threw 39 touchdowns this season, um, and they scored 29 on the ground. So, you look, losing Burton is not good. He is a very explosive playmaker, a third-team All SEC guy. Certainly is. Should be a top, 70 NFL draft pick. He's got to stay healthy too. But Georgia's got guys, and no one player makes this program. No one player. JT, George, uh, Stetson, Nakobe, everybody's replaceable. No one player is so important in this program that you are freaking out because they're not there. And I think that's the big thing to remember as you look at how Georgia will get from where they are right now to where they will be in the fall. They're going to have to address this. A.D. Mitchell is probably the person who will get a lot of what Burton would have gotten in 2022 at Georgia. But the other thing that I like a lot about Georgia's situation, particularly if they add Eric Gilbert, is you got a lot of different types of receivers. They're not all the same. So you've got with Eric Gilbert, who I do expect to play in 22. You've got a guy that's a total matchup problem no matter who he's dealing with. This guy is legit. He could be the best playmaker in the league. I'm I'm not being dramatic. He is legit. You've got Brock Bowers you got to deal with. That's not a lot of fun. You've got A.D. Mitchell, who, he looks like a standard receiver, and he plays really well. He's a good receiver. You also have to deal with not Burton, Freudian slip, Blaylock, as well as Lamakaaki. So these are guys, Blaylock, Eric Gilbert, you got Kyrus Jackson should be back. Aaron Smith is a speed guy. Um, you know, Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint, they've got a lot of players. They're not without players. Now, do they have elite players like George? No, they don't. Unless you're talking about Eric Gilbert and Brock Bowers. I think those two guys and perhaps Darnell are guys that other people just they don't have guys like that. They don't have guys that big. They don't have guys that dominant. So those three guys could be complete matchup nightmares for whoever Georgia plays. And Georgia's gonna play the way that they play, and they shouldn't fault no one. That's the way they play. They just won the national championship playing that way. And that everyone doesn't fit into their scheme or doesn't feel like they do, to me, is irrelevant. It's how do you win? How does Georgia best win? And no one player is going to determine that. They're just not. Look at the running backs over the last few years. No one player. So I don't know. Hey, make sure that you're getting DAWGSTRUCTION. It's right down below. The sales are amazing. I'm very appreciative. Don't miss out on your opportunity to get this book. Click right down below. We'll see you over on the website.